Before we begin, I ask you, have you ever stared into someone's eyes and felt as if your soul was being read like an ancient scroll? If you have, you may have met a Scorpio. In this world of fleeting conversations and surface-level connections, Scorpio stands apart. They are the guardians of depth, the keepers of secrets, and the silent observers of truth. While others run from pain, Scorpio walks through it, emerging not weaker, but sharper, wiser, and transformed. This is the path to Buddhist wisdom, and in this special series, we are uncovering the 20 superhuman powers of Scorpio, not just traits, but soul-level forces shaped by karma, shadow work, and spiritual alchemy. And today, we begin with the first two. Fire Part 1. Scorpio's superhuman power number 1 and number 2. Seeing through souls and turning pain into power. A journey through the first two divine gifts of Scorpio, as if whispered from the soul of the universe itself. Milky Way power number 1. The soul-piercing gaze. Scorpio's power to see through you. Have you ever locked eyes with someone and felt exposed, as if they weren't just looking at you, but into you? That is the first superhuman gift of Scorpio, the ability to pierce through masks, through silence, through walls, straight into the soul. This isn't just intuition. This is X-ray vision for the human spirit. Scorpio doesn't listen with ears. They listen with presence. A micro-expression, a hesitation, a subtle shift in breathing, none of it escapes them. Even when you speak confidently, they feel the current of your doubt hiding underneath. They can meet a stranger and immediately sense. You're grieving. You're lying to yourself. You're afraid of being abandoned. How is this possible? Because Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the planet of death, rebirth, and the underworld. Symbolically, they are guardians of the unseen. Like ancient monks sitting in silence, they have learned to hear what the world refuses to say. Man Lotus position a true story, the unspoken cry. I once spoke to a Scorpio emergency nurse named Daniel. He told me that during a routine ER shift, a young man walked in, claiming he just had a small cut. But Daniel looked at him, just looked, and said, "Sit down. You don't want to live, do you?" The man broke. Tears streamed down his face. He admitted he had come in hoping someone would see his pain without him saying it. Scorpio doesn't wait for words. Their gift is to feel what others hide. And while this power might make people uncomfortable, it's sacred. Because in a world obsessed with pretending, Scorpio offers something radical, truth. This is their soul contract. They must see beneath, because only then can they connect to what's real. And that connection, when honest, raw, and unfiltered, is where healing begins. Fire power number 2. Emotional alchemy, turning trauma into sacred fuel. Scorpio's second superhuman power is even more breathtaking. It's not just about surviving pain. It's about becoming something more powerful because of it. Where most would crumble under emotional wreckage, Scorpios rise. Not because they are immune to hurt, but because they let pain reshape them. This is emotional alchemy, the art of turning shame, grief, betrayal, abandonment into courage, creativity, and compassion. Fire real story. The woman who painted her pain. There was a Scorpio artist named Lena who lost her husband in a tragic accident. She spiraled into silence for a year. Friends thought she was gone, emotionally dead. Then one day, she picked up a brush. She painted for 72 hours straight, canvas after canvas. Her grief poured out in colors. Her agony became movement, light, story. She didn't just survive. She transformed. And what's more, her paintings now hang in recovery centers around the world. Survivors see them and say, "That's what I feel. That's what I needed." Candle the Buddhist reflection. In Buddhist teaching, suffering is not the end, it is the path. Scorpio lives this truth. They do not fear emotional death because they know each ending is an initiation. When they are betrayed, they do not stay bitter, they become wiser. When they are abandoned, they do not close their hearts, they become guardians for others. This is not weakness. This is holy power. Crystal ball Scorpio's double-edged gift. But here's the paradox. Because Scorpio sees so deeply and feels so fully, they're often alone, misunderstood, even feared. But their path is not to be popular, it is to be true. Their gift is not surface light, it is shadow healing. So if a Scorpio loves you, understand. They chose you despite your flaws, because they already saw them and loved you anyway. Person Lotus position. Final thoughts for part 1. Scorpio's first two powers are divine mirrors. One shows us what we've been hiding. The other teaches us that pain is not meant to break us, but to awaken us. So next time you meet a Scorpio, look again. You are not speaking to a person. You are standing before a soul shaped by fire and softened by wisdom. Loudspeaker call to action. If this spoke to your heart, don't just scroll. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with the Scorpio who saved your soul, or with someone learning to turn their pain into power. Join us next time on the path to Buddhist wisdom as we dive into part 2. Scorpio's power to rise from ashes and their magnetic pull that defies logic. Until then, stay deep, stay awake, and stay true. Fire Part 2, Power 3 and 4, The Phoenix Within and the Magnetic Pull of the Scorpio Soul. Fire Power 3, Regeneration, Scorpio's Phoenix power to rise again. Among all the signs of the zodiac, only Scorpio is ruled by the myth of the phoenix, that ancient, flaming bird which dies in fire only to be reborn in its own ashes, stronger, purer, and more radiant than before. This is not just poetic metaphor. For Scorpio, it's a lived truth. Every Scorpio, at some point in their life, experiences something that should have broken them completely. A loss, a betrayal, a collapse of identity. What others see as destruction, Scorpio sees as initiation. They don't just recover. They rebuild themselves from scratch. Stronger, smarter, more sacred. Fire Real Story, The Broken Musician. There was a Scorpio jazz pianist named Marcus. At age 31, a car accident crushed every bone in his right hand. The doctors said he'd never play again. His identity, his soul's voice, was gone. For 6 months, he refused to speak. But then, he began to retrain his left hand. Every day, every hour. Slowly, painfully, defiantly. A year later, he returned to the stage. Not as the same musician, but as something entirely new. His music had changed. It wasn't just melody. It was rebirth. Audiences cried without knowing why. That is Scorpio's regenerative power, to take what life destroys and use it as sacred raw material for something no one has ever seen before. Candle the spiritual meaning. In Buddhist tradition, we speak of impermanence, that all things will pass, transform, and return. Scorpio doesn't resist this truth. They live it. They allow themselves to die inside, to grieve, to let go of ego, to dissolve what no longer serves. And when they rise, they don't rise as who they were. They rise as who they were meant to be. This power is terrifying to others, because the world teaches us to cling, to hold on. But Scorpio shows us, sometimes, you must burn to be free. Magnet Power 4, Magnetic Presence, the pull you can't explain. There's a moment many people experience when first meeting a Scorpio. You notice them, but more than that, you feel them. It's not always beauty. It's not charm in the usual sense. It's something deeper, like a gravitational force. A pull that makes you lean in, even if you don't know why. This is Scorpio's magnetic power. An aura so dense, so charged, it bends emotional energy around them. People confess things they've never told anyone. Strangers find themselves revealing secrets. Children, animals, broken souls, they gravitate towards Scorpio as if drawn by some invisible thread. Dizzy a real encounter, the stranger in the cafe. A friend once told me about a Scorpio woman named Nina who sat silently in a coffee shop every morning, just sipping tea and journaling. She rarely spoke, but every day, people, total strangers, would ask to sit with her. They'd end up sharing stories, heartbreaks, childhood wounds. She said nothing. She just listened, with those dark, still eyes. One man even told her, "I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I think I've been lost for years." She looked at him and replied, "Then let yourself be found." That's the power of her presence. Not loud, not demanding, but undeniably magnetic. Milky Way, the mystery behind the pull. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the hidden, the subconscious, the primal. Their energy activates something buried in others. It awakens truth. Sometimes pain, but always something real. And like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, who radiated stillness so powerful it drew even demons to surrender, Scorpio holds that same power, to draw in shadows, purify them through presence, and reveal a deeper truth beneath it all. Magnifying glass tilted left. Why this power matters. This magnetism isn't manipulation. It's not about seduction. It's about resonance. Scorpio's soul speaks to the parts of you that you've forgotten or buried. Their presence reminds you of who you were before the world told you to be someone else. And that reminder, it's magnetic, because the soul always longs to come home. Person Lotus Position Closing Reflection for Part 2. These two powers, the ability to regenerate from ruin and the ability to draw others into emotional truth, are not mere traits. They are sacred roles. Scorpio is the phoenix and the magnet. They show us that who we are is not what the world sees, But what remains after the fire? Fire Part 3, Power 5 and 6. The Warrior of Shadows and the Master of Emotional Control. Cross Swords Power 5. Relentless resilience. Scorpio's power to fight in silence. There are warriors who fight with weapons. And then there are Scorpios who fight with silence, endurance, and soul. Scorpio doesn't need to shout. They don't need applause. Their fifth superhuman power is their relentless inner resilience. The ability to keep going when every door has closed, when every ally has disappeared, when even hope has stopped knocking. While others collapse under pressure, Scorpio rises through it. They don't break down in front of you. They disappear into the shadows, then re-emerge stronger, sharper, colder, wiser. Blackheart, a real story. The boy who survived alone. I once met a Scorpio man named Jordan who lost both parents before he was 16. Raised in the foster system, abandoned more than once, he built walls early. But beneath that was fire, a fire that wouldn't go out. He told me something I never forgot. I don't need people to feel sorry for me. I needed one person to believe I wouldn't become a statistic. That person was me. Now in his 30s, Jordan runs a non-profit for kids who grew up the way he did. That is Scorpio. They may be knocked down emotionally, financially, spiritually, but they always get up, and they get up with purpose. Person Lotus Position, the Inner Warrior, a Buddhist view. In Zen tradition, the true warrior is not the one who defeats others. It's the one who defeats the self, ego, fear, desire. Scorpio has been through emotional hell many times. They are forged through fire. And because they've known the darkness intimately, they do not fear it. This makes them dangerous to falsehood, to manipulation, to lies. You can't break someone who has already rebuilt themselves from nothing. Ice Cube Power 6, Emotional Mastery, the power to remain calm in chaos. While Scorpio feels deeply, perhaps deeper than any other sign, they also possess the superhuman ability to contain and channel those emotions with surgical precision. This isn't suppression. This is control with purpose. In a crisis, while others panic or explode, Scorpio becomes still, focused, unreadable, strategic. It is in the storm that Scorpio becomes the eye. Fire, a moment from the fire. A Scorpio woman named Asha once told me she was in a bank during a robbery. Everyone was screaming, ducking under tables, trembling. She didn't flinch. She observed, calculated the room, took note of the exits, the expressions, the movements. Later, when police arrived, they said her account of the event was more accurate than the surveillance footage. She smiled and said, "When you've lived through real fear, you learn to let it teach you instead of control you." This is Scorpio's emotional mastery. They don't waste energy. They channel it. They don't react to provocation. They decide their response with cold precision. Brain, the sacred balance. It would be easy to mistake Scorpio's emotional control for coldness. But the truth is deeper. Their restraint is not about fear of emotion. It's about respect for the power of emotion. They know that words spoken in rage can destroy trust. That decisions made in panic can ruin lives. So they choose silence, stillness, timing. It's not easy. It's not natural. But they've trained themselves, through years of heartbreak and self-reflection, to become masters of their own mind. Person Lotus Position, Final Reflection for Part 3. These two powers, the strength to endure the impossible and the control to remain calm amid the fire, make Scorpio one of the most powerful souls you'll ever encounter. They are the silent warrior and the still observer. In them lies the ancient truth. The one who has conquered their inner world, rules all worlds. Fire Part 4, Power 7 and 8, Leading Through Chaos and the Emotional X-Ray Vision. Shield Power 7, Crisis Leadership, the calm within the storm. Scorpio is not always the loudest voice in the room. But when the world falls apart, when the fire spreads, the system fails, the masks drop, suddenly, everyone turns to them. Why? Because Scorpio holds the rare and sacred power of crisis leadership. They don't panic. They don't look for someone to blame. They take control. Silently, precisely, effectively. When others are consumed by fear, Scorpio becomes the anchor, the stillness, the one who says, "Breathe. We move now. This way." Cross Swords Real Story, the underground shelter. In a war-torn city, a Scorpio school principal named Ilias refused to evacuate when bombs began falling. Not because he was reckless, but because the children needed someone to remain unshaken. While parents screamed, while the government delayed, Ilias turned the school's basement into a shelter. He rationed food, assigned roles, sang to the children, planned the evacuation days ahead. When rescue finally arrived, they found over 60 children alive, fed, and calm. He never raised his voice. He simply held the space for survival. That is the heart of Scorpio leadership. Person Lotus position a spiritual view. In Buddhist warrior philosophy, the leader is not the one who commands, but the one who becomes one with the chaos and transcends it. The Scorpio leader does not dominate by ego. They lead because they can bear what others cannot. Pain, pressure, the unknown. They've walked those roads and returned stronger. So when the world is collapsing, Scorpio doesn't freeze. They focus. They adapt. They act. I Power 8. Emotional X-ray vision. Seeing what others can't say. Scorpio doesn't guess what you're feeling. They know. This isn't empathy. It's deeper. It's emotional X-ray vision. The power to see what others hide even from themselves. Brain the quiet revelation. I once met a Scorpio healer named Raina who barely spoke during her sessions. She would sit across from her clients, look into their eyes, and ask one question. When did you start believing you weren't enough? The room would break. Tears would fall. People would gasp, not at the question, but at the accuracy. They didn't even know they believed that until she said it. Scorpio sees the emotional fracture lines beneath your surface. They sense the suppressed grief behind your smile, the hidden rage behind your politeness, the unresolved guilt behind your achievements. Magnifying glass tilted left. How this power works. Scorpio reads what's unsaid, not because they're psychic in the fantasy sense, but because they've walked through every emotional layer themselves. Shame, guilt, fear, loss, they've dissected those feelings in the dark corners of their own soul. So when you try to hide yours, they recognize it instantly. They see you, all of you. Candle the karma of deep perception. But this gift comes with a burden. Scorpio often sees too much, feels too much, knows too much. In a world built on pretense, that's a lonely road. Sometimes, they wish they couldn't see, that they could just smile, believe the surface, enjoy the illusion. But they can't. Their soul contract won't allow it. And maybe that's why they're here. To remind others of what's real. To hold up a mirror. To say, I see your truth. It's safe to stop hiding. Person Lotus position final reflection for part 4. With these powers, leading through the storm, and seeing through emotional armor, Scorpio becomes more than a person. They become a space. A sacred space where truth is revealed, where darkness is held, and where transformation begins. If you ever find yourself in crisis, emotional, spiritual, existential, look for the Scorpio in the room. They're not afraid of the fire. They're the fire, and the one who will walk you through it. Fire Part 5, Power 9 and 10. The soulbound loyalty and the strategic mind that outsmarts chaos. Handshake Power 9. Soulbound loyalty. Scorpio's unshakable allegiance. When a Scorpio chooses you, it's not just affection. It's a spiritual vow. Unlike other signs who give love freely, Scorpios don't offer trust casually. You can't charm it out of them. You have to earn it, slowly, through presence, depth, and truth. But once you do, you gain a loyalty so fierce, so complete, it feels ancient, like it was written in another lifetime. They will protect you, defend you, fight your battles in silence. Take your pain as their own. Snake a real story, the friend who waited in the shadows. There was a Scorpio woman named Kira who worked as a crisis counselor. She had a co-worker, Daniel, who fell into addiction after losing his wife. Everyone at the center turned away. He was removed quietly. No one wanted the mess. But Kira? She checked on him every single week. For over a year. Quietly. No judgment. No speeches. Just presence. Eventually, he recovered. He credits her with saving his life. Not with therapy, but with loyalty when everyone else disappeared. That's Scorpio. They love in a way that is invisible to the world, but unforgettable to your soul. Candle a spiritual understanding of loyalty. In Buddhist teachings, there is the idea of Kalyamatata, the spiritual friend who walks with you through suffering, not to rescue you, but to witness you with compassion and strength. Scorpio is that friend. They may be quiet. They may seem distant. But if you're theirs, truly theirs, then your pain becomes part of their sacred duty. This is not romanticism. It is soul work. And woe to those who betray a Scorpio's loyalty, because that cut goes deeper than betrayal. It's a fracture in the spiritual fabric of the bond. Brain Power 10, Strategic Genius. Scorpio's mind is always 3 steps ahead. Scorpio isn't just emotional. They are brilliantly, dangerously strategic. While others speak, Scorpio listens. While others move, Scorpio watches. While others react, Scorpio calculates. Their mind is always working quietly, mapping the terrain, analyzing patterns, detecting motives, planning escape routes, and predicting outcomes. They don't need to control every situation. They just know how to position themselves so that when things collapse, they remain standing. Detective real story: The Disappearing Partner. A Scorpio entrepreneur named Luca once told me about a failed business deal. His partners had plotted to cut him out after securing funding. He said nothing. Instead, he smiled, agreed to the contract, and quietly began transferring his assets into a new holding company months in advance. By the time they made their move, they realized everything valuable had already shifted. He didn't confront them. He didn't scream. He simply outmaneuvered them. Person Lotus position Scorpio in strategic dharma. In many Buddhist schools, wisdom, prajna, is not just about being right. It's about seeing reality clearly and acting with skillful means. Scorpio embodies this with uncanny clarity. They don't waste energy. They wait. They watch. And when the time comes, they act with such surgical precision that others think it was luck. It wasn't luck. It was silent mastery. Person Lotus position final reflection for part 5. With the power of loyalty as a soul pact and strategy as a second language, Scorpio becomes both your most trusted guardian and your most unpredictable opponent. If they're with you, you're never alone. If they're against you, you'll never see it coming. But either way, know this: Scorpio never moves by accident. Every silence is loaded. Every step is chosen. Every bond is sacred or shattered forever. Fire Part 6, Power 11 and 12. The Healer of Shadows and the Magnetic Mysticism of Scorpio. Herb Power 11. Healing through emotional depth, the silent healer. Not all healers use their hands. Some use presence. Some use depth. Some use the emotional frequency of the soul. This is Scorpio's 11th superpower, the ability to heal others simply by holding space for their truth. Candle Real Story: The Girl Who Wasn't Touched. A Scorpio woman named Liana worked as a volunteer at a trauma recovery center for abandoned children. One little girl, age 5, refused to speak, eat, or look anyone in the eye. She had been abused and neglected so deeply that the world had become unsafe. But Liana never forced connection. She sat beside the child every day, in silence, reading, breathing, just being there. Weeks passed. Then, one morning, the girl crawled into Liana's lap and sobbed. Not a word, just release. That day was her first step toward recovery. Liana never told the child what to feel. She simply offered her soul as a space where pain was allowed to exist without judgment. That is Scorpio's healing. Person Lotus position from a Buddhist lens. Scorpio's healing power comes not from fixing, but from witnessing without fear. In Buddhist practice, true healing begins when one can sit with suffering without needing to escape it. Scorpio has done that for themselves, and so they can do it for others. They don't flinch at your wounds. They've held their own. They don't try to change your sadness. They hold it with you until it no longer feels like it will destroy you. This is emotional tantra. This is energetic compassion in its purest form. Milky Way Power 12. Mystical Aura, the presence that transcends logic. What draws people to Scorpio isn't just emotion. It's not beauty. It's mystery. They carry a magnetic field around them that is hard to define, but impossible to ignore. It's a kind of energetic pull that feels like a door to something ancient, unknowable, sacred. You don't just want to know a Scorpio. You want to understand them, but you never fully will. And that's the point. New Moon: A True Encounter, the monk in a leather jacket. In Kyoto, I once met a Scorpio man who lived like a modern monk, minimalist apartment, long walks at night, no social media. He worked as a sound engineer by day, but spent his nights studying quantum mysticism and sacred geometry. When people met him, they often said the same thing. I felt like he already knew who I was. Being near him made me feel both calm and exposed. He barely spoke, but when he looked at you, it felt like standing at the edge of a forest, unsure if you were being watched or called. That's the Scorpio aura. It doesn't charm you. It summons you. Person Lotus position: The Mysticism of Scorpio. Scorpio is the gatekeeper between the physical and the spiritual realms. They carry an invisible knowing, as if they remember something you've forgotten about life, death, power, and silence. When they walk into a room, energy shifts. People adjust their posture. Conversations quiet down. Truth stirs. You can't fake this kind of presence. It's earned through soul work, transformation, and loss. Their aura is their testimony. Person Lotus Position Final Reflection for Part 6. These two powers, the healer of emotional scars and the vessel of mystical gravity, make Scorpio not just a person, but an experience. They don't need to impress you. They awaken something in you. Their silence speaks louder than words. Their depth calls you back to yourself. And in their presence, you remember. Healing is not always about being saved. Sometimes, it's about being seen by someone who knows how to hold the dark with grace. Fire Part 7, Power 13 and 14, the relentless seeker of truth and the creator from the shadows. Magnifying glass tilted left. Power 13, the truth seeker, Scorpio's obsession with what's real. Most people settle for convenient answers. Scorpio does not. Their 13th power is a ruthless devotion to truth, even when it's ugly, painful, or destructive. Especially then. Scorpio doesn't just ask, what happened? They ask, what's behind what happened? They dig. They question. They peel back layers like a surgeon with a scalpel, not to harm, but to reveal. This is not curiosity. This is spiritual excavation. Flashlight, a real story. The sister who wouldn't let go. Elena, a Scorpio, lost her brother to what the police called a freak accident. Everyone moved on, but not her. Something inside her whispered, no. She requested the autopsy, interviewed neighbors, dug into digital records. She went down rabbit holes for months. What she discovered was heartbreaking, a string of negligence and false reports that covered up a preventable death. It wasn't justice that drove her, it was truth. Because Scorpio knows. You cannot heal what you refuse to see. You cannot transform what you will not confront. Person Lotus Position, the spiritual force behind truth. In the Dharma, truth, Satya, is not a preference. It's a path. Even painful truth has the power to liberate. Scorpio walks that path, no matter how dark. They are not afraid of secrets. They are afraid of lies disguised as love, as light, as safety. They would rather burn in honesty than be comforted by illusion. And this makes them dangerous, because the world thrives on illusion. But also sacred, because truth is the root of all awakening. Artist Palette. Power 14, Creation from Darkness, Scorpio's art of shadow alchemy. Most people avoid the dark. Scorpio walks into it and brings something back. Their 14th superhuman power is the ability to create from pain, loss, trauma, and silence. Not despite it, but through it. Blackheart, real story. The poet from the graveyard. A Scorpio poet named Ren spent 2 years caring for his dying father. In that time, he stopped writing, socializing, smiling. People thought he had disappeared. But when his father passed, Ren returned with a manuscript. Not of grief, but of transcendence. He had written it in the nights between death and sleep. Not for anyone, not for publication, just to survive. When it was finally published, readers said the poems made them feel like they'd been seen in the dark places they didn't know how to name. That's Scorpio's artistry. They turn sorrow into sacred symbols. They give form to the formless ache. Waning crescent moon, creativity from the shadows, a Buddhist perspective. In Tantric Buddhism, the shadow is not evil. It's untamed power. Scorpio understands this instinctively. They don't deny their rage, grief, or darkness. They shape it. From emotional ruin, they create music. From betrayal, they sculpt truth. From silence, they paint revelation. This isn't just talent. It's alchemy. They take what should have broken them and make it a doorway for others to find beauty. Person Lotus Position, final reflection for Part 7. Scorpio's pursuit of truth and creation from darkness are not opposites. They are sisters. One digs. One builds. One destroys illusion. One remakes reality. Together, they make Scorpio the sole architect of transformation. The one who doesn't just survive, but creates from what nearly killed them. Their gift is not comfort. Their gift is truth, rebirth, and the beauty that only darkness can reveal. Fire Part 8, Power 15 and 16, the sacred guardian of energies and the protector in the shadows. Fire Power 15, sacred energy control, mastery of sexual and spiritual forces. There's a reason Scorpio is often associated with intense sexuality. But what the world misunderstands is that it's not about lust. It's about power, about transformation. Their 15th superhuman power is the ability to control, direct, and transmute primal energy, whether it's sexual, emotional, or spiritual. Fire, real story. The Tantric Sculptor. A Scorpio man named Arun lived in Bali. He was once a fashion model, constantly praised for his beauty, but empty inside. He fell into the illusion of attraction without connection. But then he encountered a tantric master who told him, "Your power isn't in your body. It's in how you choose to use your energy." He disappeared for a year. When he returned, he no longer looked like a model. He looked like a monk sculptor. He had shaved his head and now created art infused with sacred geometry and sexual symbolism drawn from ancient texts. He used the same energy that once drew people to him physically and now used it to awaken something divine in their souls. Person Lotus Position Energy, Discipline, and the Path of Scorpio. Scorpio understands that energy is sacred. Whether it's the energy of touch, gaze, breath, silence, Scorpio feels its impact, and when awakened, they can focus that energy like a laser beam. This is not about repression. It's about conscious mastery. In Buddhist Vajrayana Tantric path, this energy is called Kundalini, the coiled serpent, which when harnessed, leads to enlightenment. Scorpio carries this naturally. They can turn desire into meditation. They can turn longing into stillness. They can choose when to ignite the fire and when to extinguish it completely. Shield Power 16, Silent Protector, the Fierce Guardian Spirit. Scorpio doesn't talk about loyalty. They embody it. Their 16th power is a ferocious instinct to protect, not with noise, but with presence, with intensity, with unwavering commitment. When a Scorpio loves you, they become your silent shield. Poprints a real moment, the street incident. A woman named Jody recalled walking home late at night with her Scorpio best friend, Aaron. A group of drunk men began to follow them. Before Jody could even feel the fear fully, Aaron had positioned herself between Jody and the group, eyes locked, body calm but ready. She said only one sentence: "Take one more step, and you'll regret it forever." The men laughed and then stopped. There was something in Aaron's energy that made them back off. Not fear, not rage, just a promise. That's Scorpio protection. They don't need weapons. Their presence alone is a warning. Person Lotus Position Guardian of the Inner World. This protection doesn't only apply to physical danger. Scorpio also guards emotional boundaries. If someone tries to manipulate your mind, Scorpio sees it. If someone tries to guilt you, shame you, trap you in a toxic loop, Scorpio calls it out before it even takes root. They don't just protect bodies. They protect souls. Milky Way, why this power is rare. Scorpio doesn't rush in to save everyone. They protect what's sacred to them. That may be one person, one cause, one truth. But once they decide it's worth guarding, they become immovable. A Scorpio doesn't die for everyone. They choose carefully, but once chosen, they will sacrifice, suffer, and stand their ground in absolute silence. They are not heroes in shining armor. They are the guardian you didn't know was watching until you were safe. Person Lotus Position Final Reflection for Part 8. These two powers, controlling sacred energy and protecting what they love with unshakable resolve, make Scorpio not just intense, but deeply holy in a way few understand. They don't just love, they consecrate. They don't just protect, they vow. And in their presence, you feel something ancient, like a warrior priest, guarding a temple not made of stone, but of soul. Fire Part 9, Power 17 and 18, The Dream Oracle and the Conscious Karmic Avenger. Crescent Moon Power 17, Prophetic Dreams, the Scorpio connection to the invisible threads of destiny. Scorpio dreams are not always dreams. They are messages. This 17th power is a Scorpio's uncanny ability to receive visions, warnings, or revelations during sleep, dreams so vivid, symbolic, or accurate that they often come true or reveal truths no one has spoken aloud. Milky Way Real Story, The Pregnant Stranger. A Scorpio woman named Amira once dreamed of walking through a burning building. In her dream, she saw a woman holding her stomach, screaming, but there was no fire on her body. The next day, on the train, Amira saw a pregnant woman looking lost and anxious. Without knowing why, she approached and said, "You need to get checked for internal inflammation, please." That woman turned out to be in early labor with a dangerous condition that doctors hadn't detected. She survived. Amira didn't call it magic. She just said, "I dreamed it." That's Scorpio's gift. They walk between this world and the next, often at night, in silence, through symbols and feelings too complex for words. Person Lotus Position. The spirit of dream is Dharma. In many Buddhist teachings, the dream world is where the subconscious communicates with our deeper truths. For Scorpio, that veil is thin. They sense the karmic tide shifting, feel people thinking of them from miles away, awaken from dreams that feel more real than waking life. It is not fantasy. It is perception that lives beneath the surface of the mind. When they dream, the universe whispers. And if they learn to listen, They can warn, protect, or redirect fate itself. Balance scale power 18. Conscious karmic avenger. Scorpio's response to betrayal with awakened vengeance. Yes, Scorpio is known for revenge, but not childish payback. Their true 18th power is far deeper. The ability to respond to betrayal not with impulsive destruction, but with conscious karmic awareness, making every action a spiritual choice. Scorpion, a real case. The silent exit. A Scorpio man named Elijah discovered his business partner had been embezzling from their nonprofit. It crushed him, not the money, but the betrayal of trust. Everyone told him to sue, go public, ruin the man. But Elijah smiled and said, "No, that's too small." Instead, he stepped away, built a new foundation, raised a stronger structure. And 6 months later, donors, clients, and partners had naturally migrated to him, drawn by his integrity, strength, and quiet clarity. The betrayer? Exposed by his own unraveling. Scorpio didn't destroy him. Karma did. Scorpio simply watched it unfold, without needing to lift a finger. Person Lotus position Scorpio in karmic mastery. This is Scorpio's real power. They let karma work through them, not as vengeance, but as alignment. They know. What you do to others, you do to yourself. What you hide in darkness always finds the light. So they act with awareness. They allow justice to come not from ego, but from energetic equilibrium. They become karma's assistant, not its executioner. And that shift from reactive to conscious is what turns Scorpio's sting into spiritual swordplay. Person Lotus position final reflection for part 9. With the power of prophetic dreaming and karmic awareness, Scorpio transcends the physical realm. They don't just feel, they sense timelines. They don't just react, they restore balance. In them lives the energy of the seer and the judge, the one who dreams of the future and honors the past by transforming its pain into wisdom. They don't forget betrayal, but they choose to rise above it and let the universe handle what words and war never could. Fire Part 10, Power 19 and 20. The Soul Warrior and the Bearer of Transformational Light. Shield Power 19. The Spiritual Warrior, Scorpio's sacred role in the cosmic order. There are people who walk through life quietly. Then there are those born with a mission coded into their soul. Scorpio is one of them. Their 19th power is being a spiritual warrior, someone who, by design, is destined to walk through fire not just for themselves, but for the healing of others. Unlike traditional warriors, Scorpio doesn't carry armor or weapons. Their armor is emotional endurance. Their sword is truth. Their battlefield is the inner world, where fear, shame, guilt, and pain reside. Crossed Swords, a story of inner combat. A Scorpio named Lena once volunteered in end-of-life care. Her patients weren't just dying. They were afraid, regretful, in pain, not of the body, but of the soul. While other nurses comforted with routine, Lena sat beside them in silence and asked only one question. What truth are you still afraid to face? Many wept. Some opened up for the first time in decades. Lena didn't fear their darkness because she had already fought her own. This is what makes Scorpio a spiritual warrior. They walk into the spaces no one wants to enter, and they bring stillness. They hold the hand of the dying, the broken, the ashamed, and whisper, "You're not alone." Man in Lotus position, the higher dharma of Scorpio. In Buddhist tradition, warriors of spirit are those who cut through illusion, burn karma, and light the path in darkness. They may not look like monks, but their path is equally sacred. Scorpio's wounds are not accidents. They are initiations. Each betrayal, each breakdown, each lonely night has forged a soul capable of guiding others across the bridge between suffering and awakening. They are not here to be admired. They are here to stand where others collapse. Fire Power 20. The Transformational Flame, Scorpio's legacy of inner awakening. The final and perhaps most powerful gift of Scorpio is their ability to transform not only themselves, but everyone they touch. Their life is not a straight line. It is a series of deaths and rebirths. But each time they come back, they bring more light from the dark. Scorpio doesn't just grow, they awaken. And as they do, they give others permission to evolve, to grieve what no longer fits, to leave what was never real, to rise from what tried to end them. Fire, a living flame. The mentor who transformed generations. There was a Scorpio therapist named Malcolm. He never gave advice. He just asked devastatingly honest questions. People walked into his office thinking they needed answers. They left realizing they had buried parts of themselves, and that those parts were the keys to freedom. He didn't fix people. He ignited them. 10 years after he passed, his clients still speak of him in whispers. He didn't heal me. He reminded me who I was before the world broke me. That's Scorpio's transformational flame. Not loud, but eternal. Milky Way final reflection. Scorpio, the light bearer in the dark. Now we see it clearly. Scorpio is not just intense, mysterious, or too much. Scorpio is the midwife of transformation, the guardian of truth, the mirror of the unconscious, the torchbearer in the night. When the world gets too fake, too fast, too shallow, Scorpio appears to burn away what's false, to guide the broken home, to remind us pain is not the enemy, the dark is not a curse, and the soul is always waiting for its return to light. Loudspeaker, a message from the depths for you, the viewer. If you've seen yourself in these 20 powers, whether you are a Scorpio or loved one, know this. You are not here by accident. You are part of a generation of soul warriors, called to rise through wounds, to awaken others by living your truth, and to love in a world that fears depth. So honor your shadows. Honor your silence. Honor the way you've risen again and again without applause, because that is sacred, and you are sacred. Person in lotus position, subscribe to the path of wisdom. If this journey moved something inside you, if it reminded you of your own battles, or made you see someone in a new light, then we invite you to stay with us. Herb, subscribe to the path to Buddhist wisdom. Herb. This is not just a channel. It is a community of seekers, healers, warriors, and visionaries. Together, we walk the path. Together, we awaken. Because in the end, every Scorpio teaches us one thing. When you walk through fire with truth in your hands, you do not burn. You become the flame. White heavy checkmark. Like if you felt seen. Speech balloon, comment if you've lived any of these truths. Pushpin, subscribe to journey deeper with us into self, soul, and spirit.